So this is the very first video in our course on turning PDFs into research data. And so in this video, I'm just going to provide you with an overall preamble for the course in general. So let's start with talking about who this course is for. So this is primarily aimed at researchers, and maybe you have a little bit of software experience, like a little bit of R, a little bit of maybe Python, although it's not a problem if you have never done any Python before. You are a researcher, however, of some kind, and you want to exploit some data that you know is out there. Perhaps you have access to it, perhaps you're trying to get access to it. But the real problem is that that data isn't in a nice analyzable format, like a table or something. Actually, that data is out there across a bunch of documents. It's sitting in a bunch of text across a bunch of documents. These could be contracts, invoices. These could be even things that are less structured, like reports or paperwork or applications and things with open-ended text in them. But you want to convert this in some way into a structured data format. Okay. We are going to assume that you have no experience whatsoever in a lot of the technical side of things, like how to get text out of a scanned document, how to then use AI to extract data from that text. We assume no technical expertise on your part in that instance. Other than basic experience with coding languages like, say, for example, R or Python. But having said that, we will go across quite a number of coding languages because we're going to be talking about extracting information from the web. And so we're going to be talking about a lot of technical issues, but we're going to step you through that in a way that bridges what you already know about the coding languages that you know already and bridge that over into these more complicated technical topics. So how are we going to do that? Okay, here is how our course is structured. And before going on to this, I just want to say that this course is all about helping you learn a practical skill. So if you are currently working on a project that has some element of this, I encourage you to bring that project into this course. So every week we're going to have interactive sessions. So you're going to learn some stuff from these pre-recorded videos about how to go about these tasks, and then in the interactive sessions will be an opportunity to talk about problems that you had, what you thought about it, what you learned, and this is an opportunity for you to bring in your own use case, your own context, and get advice from not just me, but also the other students about how you could go about solving certain problems that you might be having. Now, if you don't have your own applicable example project ready to go right now, that's completely fine. We will actually be providing examples based off real industry use cases that are happening in projects that we have going right now. And so you'll be able to see some of the issues that these things tend to have in practice. And in that way, you'll be learning from a very practical standpoint. So, that said, how are we going to go about this course? So, Unit 1 is on the theory of web scraping. So, this course is about extracting structured data from PDFs. So, why are we talking about web scraping? Well, because a lot of the time, the documents that you want to access, you don't just immediately have a great big pile of PDF or other file format documents. You might not necessarily start with that. You might have this information at hand, but it is out there on the web. It's out there on a website somewhere. So we're actually going to start with how you would go from that situation where that data is out there on the web, those documents are out there on the web, and how you would actually get to the point where you have the documents in hand and are ready to extract text from them. Unit 2 is then a practical in which I'll demonstrate some code. So in this course, we will be using Google Colab. This means that you will need to have a Google account. If you do not have a Google account, you should just make one. They are free, just for the purpose of this course. But you will need that Google account. And we will use something called Google Colab, which is some Python code. And again, you don't need to know Python to follow along with this, but it is Python code. And that Python code will execute in the browser. So you won't actually need to download or install anything. You just need a Google account to see this Google Colab notebook. And you will be able to make a copy. I will give you view access only to my Google Colab, but you can copy that Google Colab notebook and execute it yourself. You will be able to then alter the code, reuse the code as you want. All of the code that we provide in this course is open to you for reuse. Then Unit 3, we begin the second half of the course where we will talk about, okay, now that we have these documents in hand, how would we extract data from the text that we see in the documents? That includes if the document is actually just scans. There's scans of text, and therefore you have to extract the text from the image. We'll go over that as well. So we'll go over the theory of that concern. And then we will, again, in Unit 4, have a practical session in which the video lecture is me stepping through an example in a Python in Python code in a Google Colab notebook. And we will actually be using large language models. So we will use Llama AI, which is a kind of large language model, to demonstrate how you can use that kind of AI to extract data from text that you got from a document. Using your Google account, you will be able to sign up for Llama AI. And that said, there will be a small amount of free credit that you'll be able to use just to run the notebooks yourself and see how this works. But that said, using LLMs in general does cost, and so I will provide a small budget that we will all share as a class to make some calls to LLMs. But before I give you access to it, I will want to talk with you about what your proposed use case is, just so I can be sure that no individual class member takes all of the credits and leaves none for the rest of the class. So that is something that we will open up a discussion about during the interactive sessions, and something that we can talk about over email over the duration of the course. Now seems like a good time to introduce myself. So I am John Collins, although you can call me Jack. I have a master's in data science. I'm currently pursuing a PhD at the University of Mannheim in the field of sociology, but it is about applying machine learning to survey methodology. Before I was a PhD student, I was an IT consultant. A lot of the examples that we cover in this course come from a project from something called Data Science for Social Good X in Munich. And that was run in 2023 by Ludwig Maximilian University. And in that project, I was what's called the technical mentor for a team of people who were extracting documents from the web and then processing the text and trying to extract data from that text. So those researchers really did a lot of the work that a lot of this is based on, and they are credited in the course material, as well they should be. And I'm simply taking a lot of the things that were learnt as part of that team over the course of that project, and then converting that into a more generalizable education product that we can share with you, so that we can start to talk about these techniques and start to train up more people out there in the research ecosystem into how to do these things for research purposes in general. And finally, I just want to make a very important disclaimer, and that is that I am not a lawyer, and none of the material that we cover here constitutes legal advice. And that's important because web scraping and extracting data from documents and then putting that text that you get into a large language model, these can all have legal implications. And if you're concerned about these, you need to consult a legal expert separately. I will say that some things that almost definitely mean you shouldn't be doing this and that you should think of another approach include anything whereby in interacting with a website, there are terms of service that you agree to for working with that website, and what you are doing violates those terms of service. Another thing you need to think about is that if you are extracting content from a website or from a document, if that is copyrighted, you must think about whether what you're doing infringes on the copyright. Another thing is that we will be talking about scraping websites, and it is possible to create a web scraping bot that actually damages or disrupts that website. And that also shouldn't be done. And another thing is that if you are extracting information, there is always the risk that some of that information you extract is private. Even if it was publicly available at the time that you scraped it, it might later become private, or later the fact that it's public information might be rescinded, and then you are retaining information that you shouldn't be retaining. So you need to think about what data you retain after you extract it. And that is very important, especially with regard to private information, and it's especially important if you send that information to a large language model API like ChatGPT or Llama AI, for the reason that then you have sent this information to a server owned by those companies. And that can also have some implications, especially with regard to personal information. So these are all things that you should think about, and that you should consult some experts on if you are in doubt. But this is just to point out certain things to you to say that if some of these things are coming up in your use case, you should think very seriously about these before you proceed. So that's it for this introductory video. In the next video, we will start with the content of Unit 1.